Okay, you guys are on this Debbie question. This Debbie question's pretty tough, right? Debbie's doing some magic tricks. The skeptic is trying to figure out what tricks she's doing. And we're trying to figure out what the skeptic's assumption was, right? What was the thing that he just, in the back of his mind, he was like, oh yeah, this must be true. And he just sort of categorized it away. But it's unspoken, right? That's the idea. This is the idea of an assumption. So we're trying to figure out that thing. And a lot of students will say something like, oh, well, the skeptic didn't test for any other tricks. He only tested for those 3 tricks, right? So the skeptic assumed that, you know, that Debbie didn't use any other tricks. Well, that answer is actually wrong. But I want to help you understand why. So here's like a backyard, right? Let's imagine that it's Easter and your mom, you know, hides a bunch of Easter eggs, sort of a thing, right? And you can look around the yard and maybe you say, so your hypothesis or thesis, yeah? Your thesis is, I don't think that my mom hid the eggs in the fire pit, right? I just don't think that my mom would hide eggs in the fire pit. So you go over and you test your thesis, right? You open up the lid and you look around in the fire pit and there's no eggs in this fire pit. So that means your thesis was right, yeah? But it doesn't matter. You don't have to assume at the same time that there were no eggs in the waterfall and there's no eggs in this pot and there's no eggs near this tree and there's no eggs over by the house and there's no eggs over here on this tree and there's no eggs here. You don't have to assume every single thing in the world. You just made a hypothesis, a thesis. And you said, I don't think that the eggs are in here. And then you tested your thesis and that's it, right? In order to test a thesis, you do not have to assume that nothing else in the whole world is true. I could also make a thesis that says, I don't think that my mom hid the eggs in this fire pit. I don't think that she hid the eggs behind the waterfall anywhere. And I don't think that she hid the eggs in this particular flower pot right there. Right? And maybe I have reasons for that, that's fine. But those are my 3 assumptions. I don't think she did any of those 3 things. And then I could go and I could test and I could say, okay, well, yep, there's no eggs in here. And oh, yep, I looked all over here and there's no eggs over here. And checking this flower pot, no eggs in the flower pot. All that's correct. And I can still be right, right? I mean, I can test it and I can find out, okay, I'm right. There we go. Yeah. She did not hide eggs in any of those 3 places. Now, if my test is good, right, and, you know, one of the other questions for this question is going to talk about, well, was the skeptic's test actually good? That's the thing you're going to want to think about. But if these tests are good, it doesn't matter what else is true. And maybe she did hide an egg over in this hydrangea bush. And maybe she taped an egg up under this chair or something, right? And maybe my mom got real crafty and, you know, hid one in the crook of this tree up there or something, right? Who knows? But I don't have to assume that there are no other trees in the whole entire yard. Sorry, there are no other eggs in the whole entire yard in order to make this thesis, right? My thesis is the eggs are not here, not here, not here. And that's it. That's my whole thesis. I don't have to assume anything else. So hopefully that can help you understand why this is not true. The skeptic just said his thesis is she did not use sleight of hand, a trick deck, or a planted volunteer. Those are the 3 things. She did not use those 3 things. And he's going to test for each of those things, and you need to think critically about if his test was good. If his tests, plural, were good. But he's going to test those things. He's going to test his hypothesis. And he doesn't need to assume that she couldn't possibly have done anything else, anywhere else. There's nothing else that she did, and everything else in the entire universe was, you know, I assume that she didn't do that. You don't have to do that in order to test one thesis. So, hopefully this makes some sense to you. If it doesn't, talk to your lead instructor because you're going to need this information to crush the next questions.